Yeah, hello, this is Dave from cheapbooks.com playing World of Tanks. The tank is the KV5. This is a Russian Tier 8 heavy tank, and the map is Sand River. This is also a premium tank. I am going to get 3 kills in the game. I'm going to do 1900 damage and 1500 blocked by armor.
Ready to fire. Target unlocked. Ready to fire.
Now, I am one of the higher tier tanks in this game. It's only a slight advantage, which I will explain later. You'll note that I play with the minimap very large, and I constantly watch the minimap while I'm playing. I'm going to give a little bit of an assessment here. You can see that the enemy is moving up to the cliff area on the right, and usually I go to the center of the map, which is the recessed area where the water is. However, I don't always do that. Sometimes I play in new places. The reason why I probably came here is because I know the enemy is going to show up over here, and I wanted to have a lot of shots on enemy tanks. Perhaps I was doing some sort of a mission. I'm not sure. Let's see if I was. Damage blocked by armor must be triple my hit points, and I had to do 2,000 damage. I did 1,900 damage, so I was a little bit short on the damage, and the blocked by armor, I only did a third, or a little bit less than a third. Now, the KV5 has very strong armor, so for blocked by armor missions, you're going to do great with this tank. In general, you can roll out in the front of a lot of tanks and they won't be able to penetrate you, which is true with all the KV tanks. However, the gun is not that great. It is a good speed. 40 kilometers is pretty good for a heavy tank. Now, because they are blocked by those hills, the best thing to do is get as high up on the hill as possible so you can hit over the hills that they're behind.
Let's find another target.
There's a lot of allies over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 allied tanks, all in one spot, and I don't like playing like this. There's too many tanks, so what happens is the chance that you get to fire decreases because they're going to block the areas where you need to be positioned in order to fire. They're going to keep the enemy pinned down, which means that they're going to be reluctant to peek out, and they're going to try and steal shots from you. So I really don't like being surrounded by so many allies. I prefer ideally to be with 1 or 2 allies that work together as a team to gang up on the enemy, but you know that rarely happens. Now, in this situation, the further I go up this hill, the more I'm going to see his tank. So you want to go up the hill to fire and then reverse and go down the hill to reload. Oh, look at that. You can actually see around. I really don't understand this at all. I mean, that's his tank, and that's the tracer. And you see what appears to be around there, heading towards my tank, but the impact point is already highlighted. And it doesn't look like he's going to hit that impact point. Maybe that's from another tank that's unspotted. I don't know. So you see I move backwards while I'm reloading.
Permission to engage.
When you use the auto aim in this type of a situation, the reason why it works out really well is because he's driving up a hill. So he's going to have to go very slow. So you can just use the auto aim and you're going to hit him no problem. Reload, I go back and I watch my reload. When it gets to the halfway point, right now it's almost at 3/4, I reverse until it's halfway reloaded, and then when it's halfway reloaded, I start going forward again. And this way, by the time I'm ready to shoot, it reloads at exact the moment that I'm ready to aim and shoot.
Target released. Ready to fire. Penetration.
Now you can see it's very crowded over here. Look at all these tanks. For them, it should be so easy for them to hit us. They could miss their shot and still hit somebody.
Track hit. Let's find another target. Permission to engage. Let's find another target.
You're also going to notice I have a horrible angle right now. The gun is pointed over the side of my tank. That's absolutely a horrible thing to do. You want the gun to be pointed over the front of your tank. I point it over the track or where the headlight is.
We didn't even scratch them.
You'll also note that those are both Tier 7 tanks. Their guns are a lot weaker, and they're less likely to penetrate me. And there are 2 artillery in the game, so I have to keep on moving.
We didn't penetrate their armor.
The best way to penetrate the armor on this tank is to hit the commander's hatch or the flat area which is below the turret, which you can clearly see. And if you have a high explosive round, you want to aim right for the side that I'm pointing to with the cursor, the side of the turret on the left or the side on the right or the side armor over here. That you would shoot high explosive rounds.
We didn't penetrate their armor.
Now, there might be some of you who say, well, can you hit the commander hatch from this far away? Absolutely. You can definitely hit it with the right tank, with a good accurate gun. You can hit those commander hatches from far away, especially if the tank isn't moving.
We've lost the track.
Completely missed. I seem to recall that this tank has horrible gun dispersion, so it takes a long time to aim, which means that you want to get the vertical stabilizer, the gun laying drive, BIA cruise skills, the snapshot and smooth ride, and vents. If you get all of those, then you have almost the maximum for improving your aim. The only exception is there's a consumable like chocolate and Coca-Cola, I don't know what it is for the Russians, that will also improve it a little bit, but those are also very expensive, which is the reason why I'm not using it. And I do have all of those except for the food consumable.
Enemy armor is hit. Ready to fire. Penetration.
So the CDC flanked us. That's something that those tanks are very capable of doing. Now, obviously, I fired that shot. I'm trying to get away from those tanks because I want to focus my attention on him. So I'm using the auto aim and I'm focusing on driving.
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Now, ideally, I do want to turn my tank and put my frontal armor towards those other tanks. I haven't done it yet.
We're immobilized.
You definitely don't want to be immobilized because the artillery will take shots at you. In this position, I could probably be hit by the artillery. However, if I get closer to this ridge, they're less likely to hit me. You can see I waited for the track to repair on its own.
Drive on.
And I do use 2 repair kits for every tank except for light tanks. Now for this VK, you want to hit him on the upper turret. You can see that there's a mark where he already got hit. That's exactly where you want to hit him. If you use high explosive rounds, you want to hit on the side of the turret, which is where the gun is aimed right now. He's going to be a really difficult target. So while I'm reloading, I'm moving my tank so the artillery doesn't hit me. You can see he went out way too far, made himself very vulnerable. Now, I've said it before in many videos, when you crest the top of a hill, your gun is pointed up in the air, and this is a perfect example. My gun is pointed too high, so that tank would be able to hit me, but if I don't have the gun depression, I can't hit him unless I roll forward, so he has an advantage. However, it looks like he's a tank destroyer. I'm really not sure because I don't have that tank. And I do have some time, but ideally what you want to do is change the angle so that you're aiming this way, driving up the hill this way, or down that way, and the gun is pointing over the side. What I would do in this situation to hit him is I would turn my tank and aim it towards this tree, and then my gun would have the proper gun depression to hit him. And you can see that is what I did. I turned my tank, and I didn't aim it all the way towards the tree, but I had to aim it that way. Don't drive over this way and get closer to him. Turn the tank and go that way, and you'll get the gun depression. And you still got to watch out for artillery. You'll note that artillery has not shot at me yet in this game. So I've been safe. And while you're driving, constantly make adjustments. Don't just head straight at him. Every couple of seconds, turn your tank a little bit in case the artillery is aiming at you. Now, turning left means I'm going for the artillery. It's 10 to 6. Constantly watching the mini-map. Counting how many tanks. Like I see 2 enemy tanks in the south, which means that we've only got the 2 artillery to worry about. They should be no problem. I rarely get hit by artillery at the end of the game.
Target acquired. Target unlocked.
Oh! Now, excuse me, he doesn't realize that as he was backing up to deal with the Panther and the T-49, he was making himself available for me to shoot at. You can see the other artillery was knocked out of the game. I did get 3 kills. At this point, I'm on the far opposite side of the map. The 2 remaining tanks are all the way across the map. So now you have to turn around, go all the way across the map, because your allies might not be able to kill them, and they might need help. And I've had games before where I've gone all the way across the map and done more damage. So you want to keep on playing the game. And actually, if you take a good look, you can see we've got a T-10 and a T-44. The first thing you want to know is how many hit points do your allies have, and how many hit points does the enemy have. Because obviously if you're in a weak position, you do need to get there. So the T-10 has 74%. The Panther has perhaps 10%, and now he's dead. So we're going to go for that Tiger. He did kill the artillery, but as you can see, we are swarming in on this tank. My team has a lot of hit points left. They are going to kill that Tiger. They're all outmatching him in terms of the tier. I'm probably going to look for a high position. And he was a one-shot. He had 21 hit points. I was going to look for a high position and see if I could snipe from the distance. Okay, so that's the game. I did get 3 kills. I did 1,900 damage. I did 1,500 blocked by armor. Excuse me. I did not complete the mission. I was 100 short on damage, and I needed to do another 3,500 blocked by armor. Okay, so the KV5. I've waited a long time to buy this tank. It was just made available for sale again. And I've gone up against this tank in games before, and they're very hard to penetrate, which gives them an advantage. The gun is not that great. Let me see what the gun does. 219 penetration is a little low. 167. The gun's not that great. Let's see how much damage it does. 300, yeah, 300 is pretty good. But it doesn't really penetrate that much. And the reload time, I think, is maybe 6 or 7 seconds. It's not that bad. But you're not going to penetrate like crazy. So you're going to have trouble against other Tier 8 heavy tanks. This is a... In terms of armor, you're going to be pretty good, but the armor isn't perfect. People are still going to damage you. The tanks that are light tanks and medium tanks and lower tier tanks, you're going to have no problem. Don't worry about them. Higher tier tanks will damage you. But in general, you got pretty good armor. On paved surfaces, like on Himmelsdorf, you're going to go really fast driving around. This is a very heavy tank, so ramming, you're going to do a lot of damage ramming with this tank. So I did admire seeing other people playing this tank in the game. I was very excited about getting one, and I'm happy that I do own one now. In terms of a Tier 8 premium, is it worth it? I think so. I'm glad I bought it. I like all the higher tier premium tanks because the higher tier premium tanks train your crew faster because they do more experience. They also earn you more money, which means you can use the APCR rounds. So I think all the higher tier premium tanks, I buy all of them. In terms of if you were going to buy a Tier 8 premium tank and you had to choose between this and another tank, what would you buy? You've got the T-34, the Low, the IS-6, the WZ-111, the 112. Probably others. You got the Super Pershing, which is a medium tank, the M4 Revelaris or whatever it is, SCM-50T. I would say this is a decent tank, but it's not your number one pick. Most of the tanks I mentioned, I would say you should pick before you pick this particular tank. The WZ-111, I would say, is a very good choice for a Tier 8 premium tank. The IS-6 used to be one of the best Tier 8... Did I say Tier 6? The IS-6 used to be one of the best Tier 8 premium tanks. Now it's a little bit different. If you want a lot of damage, you want probably something like a T-34. If you want a general good Tier 8 tank, I recommend the Super Pershing. The M4 Revelaris, the French one. Excuse me. I've said in my other videos I hate the tank. It's actually the tank I do the most damage with. It does a lot of damage. I get great games out of it. And I'm starting to like it, and it's very maneuverable. So in terms of Tier 8 heavy tank, I wouldn't say it's my first choice. I like the Low. I happen to like the Low very much, but it's very slow. I would say you might like this tank, but you're going to be disappointed with the gun. And if you have the choice, try to get the WZ-111. Look into those types of tanks before you get this. Excuse me. If you like Russian tanks, definitely get this tank to train your crew. In terms of weak spots, obviously you've got these gun turrets in the front. You can see the holes that the gunner looks through. If you hit that with a high explosive round, you can knock out the gunner very easily. It does pretty well. I recommend the tank. I do enjoy playing it. If you have lots of tanks, I'm not going to say it's a piece of crap. It's not a piece of crap. Is there a tank that I think is worse than this? I would say in Tier 8 heavy tanks, this would be tied with the lower level of heavy tanks, the ones that I don't recommend as much. It's not fast like the FCM-50T, but I do like the tank and I do play it. Okay, so that's the game. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.